everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Strike Noise, your weekly baseball history podcast. I'm one half of the show. My name is Jeff. The other half, as always, Mark A. Johnston. Mark, season's winding down. We're getting into playoff time. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And it's kind of funny because every week you send it off to me and then I say something stupid, but I never think ahead of time of what I'm going to say like a professional would do. So I'm just saying random stuff this week because I couldn't think of anything.
That's okay. I usually edit that out. So.
Oh, right on. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it.
Wow. So much stuff to talk about. I've still got some stuff. You know, we took a little bit of a break. I've got a bunch of stuff that we kind of missed while we were taking a little respite that I want to get back to. But before we get into BP and all that, I do want to just say, I mentioned last week why we had not been around for a couple of weeks and what I'm going through and stuff. And I just want to say thank you, very like a heartfelt thank you to our listeners. We had a lot of people reach out, a lot of people that we've talked to before, a lot of people that have just been listeners and hadn't actually communicated with us before reached out. And I really, really appreciate it. That was, it made me feel a little odd that people, cared like that have never met me, but I do appreciate that. I am working on the old mental health. It's an ongoing process, but I appreciate it. We're back. This is 2 weeks in a row, Mark. So
yeah, we do have some pretty awesome listeners. I gotta say, I gotta agree with you.
Yeah, we really do. And I think we've got some wax packs later on in this show from a new source, too, which is very exciting.
We do, yeah.
Listeners are awesome. But let's get into BP, Mark, because we don't want to go in here cold. And I want to talk about just a whole bunch of stuff here. First of all, I'm a Mets fan now,
Yes, of course.
But we've mentioned how I watch the Mets every day, auditioning them to be my ride or die, since my ride or die may or may not be leaving Oakland. We'll talk about that here in a minute as well. But boy, what a game to wrap up the 3-day series of the Mets in Toronto. Blue Jays pitcher Bowden Francis, for the second time in 4 starts, lost a no-hitter to a leadoff home run in the 9th inning.
Amazing.
First of all, in a span of 4 starts, have 2 no-hitters going into the 9th inning. That's incredible on its own. But then to lose them both to leadoff home runs in the top of the 9th, I guess it's apropos that he is a Blue Jay, because Dave Stieb is like, I understand. I feel you. But
yeah, no kidding.
This week it was Francisco Lindor. Last week it was Taylor Ward, or I guess a couple of weeks ago, August 24th of the Angels did the same thing. That made Francis the first pitcher to lose 2 no-hit bids in the 9th inning during one season since 1989, and Nolan Ryan.
Wow.
Lost 2 no-hitters going to the 9th for the Rangers. I mentioned Dave Stieb.
Of those.
Yeah, he did. As did Dave Stieb, who I mentioned, who has thrown the only no-hitter in Blue Jays history at Cleveland in 1990. In 1988, he lost 2 no-hitters in the 9th inning, but then Nolan Ryan did it the next year to make him the last one to do it before this year.
Right.
Tough. That's a tough way to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, that can't be easy.
Mark, I've said it before, as I just hinted at. I'm going to say it again. I do not believe that the A's are playing their last season in the Coliseum this year. I don't think so. Word has it today that MLBPA has not signed off on the A's playing in Sacramento. And Scott Boras did an interview in Sacramento and made it sound like it's just not going to happen, that they're not going to sign off on this. The players union is not going to sign off on this. And apparently negotiations are still ongoing. The A's actually just sold their half of the Oakland Coliseum to a local group who owns the other half a week or so ago. And apparently there may be some negotiations going back and forth between those two groups.
Interesting.
I've said this all year. I do not think you can move this team at least to Sacramento. I think they're gonna, I don't think they're even gonna go to Vegas, but I do not think you can move this team away from a major league. It's not the best, but it's a major league facility. And I don't think the players union will allow that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got a great point. Plus the fact that they haven't settled everything in Vegas.
Well,
yet.
yeah, I mean, there's no financing. I'm just saying Vegas is not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I concede that they will probably end up being the Sacramento A's in a new stadium. Or maybe he's forced to sell, and I think if he's forced to sell, I think they remain here in Oakland because there is a line of people waiting to buy it. They want to keep the team here. But also, I did want to mention that if they stayed here, he would get his full allotment of TV money. I think he's getting a good portion of it in Sacramento. They talked about moving to Salt Lake City, but he would lose almost all the TV money there. So, this is John Fisher. The only thing he cares about is his money. So I really think that there is a very good chance that, in a week or so, it is not actually the last home game in the history of the Coliseum. But what I do want to say, I think I've hinted around this year. The A's have they actually have two new play-by-play announcers on TV. One is Chris Carey, the great-grandson of Harry Carey, the grandson of Skip Carey, and the son of Chip Carey.
Nice.
And he's a Carey. I mean, for better or worse, he's got the exact same inflection and tone as his father. But he is this is the first year in the majors, and he's absolutely polished. The other side of this coin is Jenny Cavnar, who was named the first full-time female play-by-play television voice in Major League Baseball.
Yes.
And, this is the Bay Area. It was met with, this is going to be great, where at least something good is going to happen. But she has been met with a lot of derisive comments, and deservedly so.
Yeah, I've heard some of the, let's call them lowlights of her.
Yeah, she's not. She has been a sideline, I guess, reporter for the Rockies for several years, and she's excelled at that. And I think that's something she's good at. And I know there are a couple of female voices in the radio booths across, mainly in the American League East, who do a great job. And I'm rooting for her, but we're almost the entire way through a season now, and she is not getting any better. And I've seen a lot of comments on social media saying that it is really just people being sexist, and that is truly not the case. And if you think it is, I plead for you to just listen to a week's worth of games with her on the microphone and tell me that she's not awful and she's not getting better. That's the thing too, is I don't see anybody mentoring her. It's to the point where it's hard to watch. And what I'm frustrated about is with the A's being the A's, they have already told Vince Contronio, who has been on our show, is an absolute consummate professional broadcaster. They've already told him they will not be renewing his contract after this year. Kent Korak, longtime voice of the A's, is probably going to be retiring, especially if they do go to Sacramento. I talked to Dallas last homestand, Dallas Braden, and he won't say it, but I don't think he's going to be back next year either. And I mean, he is literally the only reason to listen to a broadcast. But all of this, I wanted to play you two samples here of why I love the Mets and their booth and why I can't listen to my favorite home team broadcast. So I mentioned the no-hitter going into the ninth, Mets versus Blue Jays. Francis trying to get that no-hitter. Francisco Lindor, who is having a phenomenal season. If you subtract like the first 2.5 months of the season, he is by far the best player in baseball. But
he's absolutely tearing it up.
He is.
It's amazing.
And to get to watch him every day, I mean, he's just incredible. But it was a 1-0 game going into the top of the ninth with this no-hitter, and he led off the inning. And I just want you to hear what happens. First of all, I'm just going to spoil it. I mean, it's 2 days old at this point. But he hits a leadoff home run. I think I even already said that. But listen to Gary Cohen and how he describes this home run that ties up the game in the ninth inning.
That's driven to deep right field, and a home run ends this no-hit bid. Linsanity! Francisco Lindor ties the game with a ninth-inning home run. As big a hit as the Mets have had all season. Francisco Lindor breaks up the no-hit bid and the shutout, and he ties the game with his 31st home run of the year, and it's 1-1 in the ninth.
Now, Gary Cohen is a lifelong Mets fan. He's from New York. I saw a video of him making this call. He jumped up out of a seat like Keith Hernandez, like looked over at him like, are you okay? But I mean, just Linsanity. You can tell he's into this. He's enjoying the game. It's just great. I'm going to play you Brent Rooker today for the A's. Hit a home run. The A's were trailing, I think it was 3-2 in the 8th inning. And hit a solo shot against the Astros to tie it up. Just listen to this excitement from Jenny Kavner.
Trying to get his on-base streak to keep moving. This one in the air. This one has some distance, and this one has tied the ball game. Brent Rooker with a solo home run. That's a way to extend the on-base streak and a way to tie the game.
I'm going to cut it there because there's another 10 seconds of just dead air of her just not saying anything.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Then Dallas tried to jump in and she kind of stepped on him. There was more silence. I mean, there's just no presence for the game. There's no excitement. There's not even a call. I, again, think that this is a ploy to get A's fans to just not care. And I hate to say it, it's working. I watch the A's, but I do it with the mute on or watching another game. So
yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, there are some fantastic women in the booths that are doing play-by-play or color. And like we have Angie Mentink fills in for us every once in a while. And she is fantastic. I love listening to her. She knows the game backwards and forwards, and she really plays it up. Her commentary is outstanding. It has nothing to do with that. It's just there are good and there are bad announcers.
Yeah. And I think anybody that has listened to our show knows that we're not going to be on somebody because of politics, sex, religion, anything like that. We are just baseball fans, and that is not a way to enjoy baseball. And I'm sorry to be Debbie Downer, but I just, with that great call yesterday and had me so pumped up. And then, I see Rook hit this bomb. It was a no doubter. And I was so excited. And just to hear that, I was like, oh my God, this is bringing me down. But I do want to talk about something else, not A's related. I think I'm done with the A's stuff for today. But somebody that's always happy, and there's a reason why, Johnny Damon, the self-described idiot, who was acting a little strange on Yankees Old Timers Day this year. So I guess this was his first time he'd been to Old Timers Day, and there is no definitive proof, but everybody seems to think he was pretty drunk during this game. And he has a history of drinking a lot. He was arrested for DUI in 2021 in Florida, and according to the arrest report, 2 hours after he was taken into the station and given a blood alcohol level test, he was nearly 4 times over the legal drinking limit. He was at 0.3%. And this is 2 hours after he was pulled over. He refused the breathalyzer, so they took him in and gave him a blood test.
They checked the blood in his alcohol system?
Yes. So, I mean, the guy, and also if you're like me and you're obsessed with Below Deck on Bravo, love that show. He's been on that show a couple of times and he's been sober for like 3 seconds of it.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a reputation for being a bit of a drinker.
He does, yeah. But I mean, you would think if you're going out on the baseball, field to do anything, you wouldn't want to be. But I mean, I don't know. Look at Doc Ellis. What do I know?
Well, that's a good point too.
So I saw this on Reddit. It is a list of the last player on every team to have a 1,000 OPS or better season with a minimum of 500 plate appearances. So an OPS of over 1, essentially. A lot of these teams were looking at the last time they had one in the 20 teens for most of the teams. But I'm going to give you a couple of teams. So like, for example, the Angels last year, Shohei Ohtani was a 1.066 OPS. Let's see. Aaron Judge was the last Yankee. That'll probably fall this year. Might even be Soto. But a 1.111 OPS in 2022. So you get the kind of names we're talking about. But some of these teams, you got to go back quite a while. So, Mark, can you tell me who was the last Mariner to have an OPS of over 1?
Over 1. Griffey?
No. And I think it's just because he was, I think he left before Alex Rodriguez finished his stint in the Mariners. Is that true or no?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So the year 2000, Alex Rodriguez was the last Mariner with an OPS plus. It was 1.026. The A's, it was 2001 the next year, and it was Jason Giambi. For the Giants, you've got Barry Bonds with a 1.422 OPS. That was in 2004. Some of these go back a little bit. The 2000, it was A-Rod for the Mariners and Mike Piazza for the Mets. 1996, Ken Caminiti for the Padres. And then the last team on this list is the Kansas City Royals. Can you guess who the last Royal was with an OPS of over 1?
Wow. How about George Brett?
There you go. Very nice. 1985 was the last time the Royals had somebody that had an OPS over 1, and it was George Brett.
Wow.
That's going back quite a ways.
Yeah. So just yesterday, a buddy of mine, Todd, at work at the Mariners, he said, "Hey, who's the San Diego Padres all-time leader in home runs?" And I couldn't really think of anyone. And anyway, it's Manny Machado.
Get out.
No, I'm serious.
Wow.
And now here's what just killed me. Who's second? Do you have any guesses?
Juan Soto.
No, it's not Juan Soto. It's Nate Colbert.
Oh, well, of course. Nate Colbert?
That's right.
I don't even remember Nate. Oh, is Nate Colbert, is he from like the 70s?
I probably should have looked it up.
Yeah, he is. Okay, now I know who Nate Colbert is. Yeah, I never saw him play. He played from 66 to 76, 6 years for the Padres from 1969 through 1974, and he has 163 home runs as a Padre.
Yes. Machado has 164 at this point.
Oh, man.
And then it goes Adrian Gonzalez, Phil Nevin, and number 5 is Dave Winfield.
Jeez. Well, at least Ozzie Smith's not on that list because you don't have a lot of home run hitters if Ozzie Smith is
I mean, it's interesting. Maybe guys aren't staying with the Padres for long periods of time, with the exception, of course, of Tony Gwynn, who is 6th all-time in Padres home runs.
They've just never had that big bat that has, one, come up with the team, and two, that they have been competitive enough to try and keep teams together. Obviously, now is a different era. I mean, Ken Caminiti's got to be in the top 10.
He's 10th, absolutely.
There you go.
And 9th is the guy that I'm pretty sure is going to break the record that Manny Machado has, and that's Fernando Tatis.
Possibly.
2 to Machado's 164.
I don't know if they can keep all these guys on that team, though.
Well, that's a good point. Tatis hit one yesterday to break up the 7th inning perfect game being thrown by Brian Wu. That one hurt. Wu retired the first 19 hitters, and then Tatis comes up and pops one out in left field.
I'd had enough of seeing people not get on base with the Mets games. Let's see. Here's another thing. This is one thing that I wanted to address while we were taking our little respite, so I'm going to bring it now. So just pretend I'm saying this like 2 weeks ago, but wow, I got so tired of hearing about Danny Jansen appearing in the same game for 2 different teams. Cool. We get it. It was a suspended game. It happens. But Mark, you have given us the story of Joe Youngblood before on this podcast.
Yes.
Playing for the Mets against the Cubs in Chicago. Then he's traded to the Expos. He flies to Philadelphia and plays in a game that night as well. Got a hit in both games. That's a lot more interesting and 1,000% harder to do. Yet all they want to talk about is, Jansen is, he's in the same game for 2 different teams.
Yeah, it's interesting and it's an anomaly, but my goodness, I got a lot of press.
Yeah, it's not the first time. I mean, first of all, Will Ferrell played for like 10 teams in one day a couple years ago during spring training. But also, May 30th, 1922, two players were traded for each other during the break of a doubleheader between the Cubs and the Cardinals. They were traded for each other. They just switched locker rooms. They both played in both games for both teams.
Yeah.
So it was a Memorial Day doubleheader at Cubs Park at this point. Max Flack, not to be confused with Max Headroom or Max Payne, was traded for Cliff Heathcott, not to be confused with Heathcliff Slocum. Both men, though, appeared in both games for both teams. Flack, by the way, was labeled as the old school kind of GOAT during the 1918 World Series.
Oh, the GOAT when it was bad.
Yeah, so I was going to say, remember in The Natural when Max Mercy, not to be confused with Max Muncy.
No.
Which I did. I was like, what's his name? Max Muncy? He was drawing the cartoon of Roy Hobbs as being the GOAT of the series because he was striking out.
Yes.
Now that word is like a complete 180 in the sports world, and that's all anybody ever says. But in the third inning of Game 6 at Fenway Park, playing for the Cubs, his throwing error gave the Boston Red Sox 2 unearned runs, which proved to be the margin of victory, and giving the Red Sox the World Series win, the last one for some time, almost 100 years. There had been some rumors that Flack possibly intentionally committed that error. White Sox pitcher Eddie Seacott, who, of course, was involved in throwing the 1919 World Series, referenced that multiple strange occurrences happened during that World Series. And it was Flack who, beyond a couple of errors, was also picked off twice in one game on base.
Nice.
He remains the only player to get picked off twice in a single World Series game in the history of the game.
Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. Also, another note on Heathcott, on August 25th, 1922, the Cubs and the Phillies played a 26-23 game, where Heathcott set a modern National League record by reaching base 7 times in that 9-inning game.
Wow.
That's a lot of on base, a lot of ABs too. So, Mark, this is usually the time where we would do debuts, but I'm gonna switch it up a little bit today because there are a lot of debuts, September call-ups, that I want to talk about. So I've got a couple of more kind of BPS stories here, and then we'll get into all of these debuts because there's some really good things to talk about before we get to Wax Pack Zeros. Is that okay with you? I just wanted to double check.
Well, let me think about it. Yes, it's fine. No, it sounds good to me, actually.
Okay. So this happened a little while ago, but wanted to bring it up. We haven't talked about it yet. The ballpark from A League of Their Own and 8 Men Out was destroyed by fire. This is in the city of Ontario, which is a little bit east of Los Angeles. J. Littleton Ballpark. It was a, quote, traditional old school ballpark, end quote, that dated back to 1937. The structure behind home plate and the dugouts and the press box were all engulfed with fire. The field itself is fine, but basically you can't watch a game there at this point. The 1992 film A League of Their Own, as well as 8 Men Out, and the Babe Ruth story were filmed there. Another story said that it was actually not the Babe Ruth story, but actually the Babe. Not to be confused with Babe.
Right. The Babe.
The Babe.
But then in the city.
Yeah. Then I found another story, though, that mentioned both the Babe Ruth story and the Babe were filmed there. Also, location for a 1999 X-Files episode called The Unnatural, as well as some of the recent reboot of A League of Their Own that's on Amazon was filmed there. Unfortunately, like I said, the dugouts were both burnt down. The dugout on the third base line is where Tom Hanks said his iconic line, "There's no crying in baseball."
Yes.
That's what got burnt down. So that's unfortunate. Speaking of Babe Ruth, and we mentioned this a couple of shows ago, I think it was his bat from the called shot was up on auction or something like that. Game 3 of the 1932 World Series, his uniform was up for auction now. And the big thing here is that they had been able to photo match it to say this is definitely the uniform he wore when he taunted the Cubs dugout, which people think he was pointing, which he was, I am fairly certain not. But this jersey sold for $24.1 million, setting a record for the most expensive sports memorabilia collectible ever sold.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I just missed out. The previous record for a sports collectible sold at auction was a rare mint condition 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card, which sold for $12.6 million. That's more than the Honus Wagner card then, right? The Mickey Mantle card.
Yeah, because now these cards are getting a lot more play because of the grading system. And finding a Mantle 52 in mint condition is very difficult.
So tear up your Honus Wagners. They're just not worth it.
Yeah, or send them to us. We'll put them in Wax Packs Heroes.
By the way, this was the 1932 was Ruth's last World Series, and his quote-unquote called shot was his last home run in a World Series. But, Mark, if the $24.1 million is too rich for your blood, you could also get a Babe Ruth signed baseball from Costco. Of course. They have one listed on Costco.com for $18,999.99. So under $19,000, you can get a Babe Ruth signed baseball. Now, this was on social media that this was shown, and there were a couple of great comments that I want to read. The best one was that if I'm buying this from Costco, I expect it to come in a 3-pack. And the second best comment was, for $19,001.49, you can get a Babe Ruth signed baseball, a hot dog, and a drink. Let's see. I wanted to play this. John Kruk. We love John Kruk, both as a player and as he becomes an even saltier announcer for the Phillies. This is from a broadcast a couple of weeks ago. The Phillies were hosting the Nationals, and they've got a great booth because, like the Mets, you want to hear them talk even if the game is out of reach. This game wasn't, but it's great baseball talk. And so John Kruk was talking about Brad Lidge, who is apparently, I remember him mostly as the closer for the Houston Astros in, 2005, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there.
Well, they were talking about Brad Lidge, who is getting a PhD in archaeology now that he's been retired for a while. But John Kruk is always asking the serious questions that everyone else is afraid to ask for fear of looking like a rube. And then all of a sudden he's throwing strays at Jamie Moyer here.
But what's he going to do? Is he going to go on digs and stuff? Isn't that what that's called when they go look for that old stuff?
Well, Mike Harmon, our director, just said he's Indiana Jones. No, that would be cool. He could be Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford's getting up there.
Yeah, he's good looking enough. I bet he'd look good in one of them leather hats, too, that Indiana Jones wore.
Where's Jamie? Let's ask. Jamie's got to do something else because Brad's going for his PhD.
Jamie Moyer?
Yeah.
But Jamie, Brad might be digging him up.
Just a complete innocent bystander, and Jamie Moyer's getting it from John Kruk.
Jeez, you were dead on with that 2005 Astros closer. He had 42 saves that year.
Yeah, and I think didn't he give up a home run to Albert Pujols, just a monster shot? I think it was in those playoffs. I don't remember. I think it would have probably been the NLDS. Yeah.
I may know, but I have erased it from my memory.
Yeah, because I think they would have been playing the Cardinals because the Astros are still in the National League at that point. But Mark, we have dogs. You have dogs. I have dogs. We love dogs, cats. We don't eat them.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't eat them because, frankly, nobody's eating them in this country. But Shohei Ohtani, did you see him and his dog throughout the first pitch?
I did. It was amazing.
That was so great. It was Shohei Ohtani bobblehead day at the Dodgers. And first of all, I was so impressed with that dog because no matter how great your dog is trained, you put him out there someplace they're not familiar with in front of 50,000 people, and he still listened and did exactly what he was asked to do. I was so impressed.
That was incredible. I mean, usually you see a dog go out there, you want to follow him out there with a little baggie.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, in other dog news, the Clearwater Threshers have a bat dog named Lucy who needed that plastic bag. Sometimes when you just got to go, right?
Yeah, deposited right there on the field.
Yeah, so I think this was Lucy's first year, and in between innings, got a case of the zoomies, right? Dogs get that, cats get that, people get that. You just and got loose on the field while the players were warming up, and made a dookie right behind home plate. In between innings. No word if Lucy was ejected or not. I would think that would be grounds for ejection, but I don't know.
Well, if she was saying that's what she thought of the umpire's calls.
Yeah, she would have done it right on home plate. Speaking of Ohtani, though, I mean, he is very close to being the first member of the 50-50 club right now. I think he's got like 47 home runs and 48 stolen bases, something at the time of this recording. Just, it's incredible. Remember when
pretty good.
You remember when Canseco did it the first time, and everyone thought there is no way anybody could do this, let alone ever do it again.
Right. 40-40 was it.
Yeah. Well, that jump up to 2024 tells me that, something might have been allowing players to do 40-40 in the 80s and 90s when they did it, the few that did it. But good for Shohei Ohtani. And speaking of that, and players joining elite clubs for single seasons, this is from The Athletic. And just listen to some of these clubs that Bobby Witt Jr. could be a member of before the end of this season. First of all, the 140-220 club.
Okay.
That would be runs scored and hits.
Wow.
He was on a clip a week ago to finish with 141 runs scored and 227 hits. The last player to do that was 88 years ago. It was the mechanical man, Charlie Gehringer.
Wow.
Let's see. The last 100 years, Lou Gehrig did it, as did Nap Lajoie. That's it.
Wow. That's pretty decent company.
The note is that Cobb and Lajoie did it both before the invention of the refrigerator. Just to give you some idea of how long ago that was.
Are you telling me they didn't have refrigerators on the Mayflower? Because I could have swore I read something like that. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that.
Let's see. Obviously, the 30-30 club is well within. I mean, I think he's gonna do that pretty easily if he hasn't already. I haven't looked at his numbers right now. Let's see. He also has a chance of leading the league in extra base hits and singles.
Wow.
I mean,
that's impressive.
That's a lot of stuff. Again, it has only been done a couple of times by Stan Musial, Enos Slaughter, and again, Ty Cobb and Nap Lajoie. When you're constantly being compared to Ty Cobb and Nap Lajoie, who played in the early 1900s, the 1910s, that's saying something.
Yeah, you're a special player at that point.
Yeah, you really are. Bobby Witt Jr., he's just a fun player to watch.
Agreed.
I enjoy him. All right. Let's see. That's going to do it, I think, finally, for our BP segment here. Because like I said, our debut segment, a lot of good names, and I want to talk about them for a while. Well, not a while. I just got a bunch of them here before we get into Wax Packs Heroes. So, Mark, this show is set to debut on September 13th. So, of course, that's up until last year. That was September call-ups would be in the middle of where you could expand
Friday
the
roster.
the 13th. All right. The first person I wanted to mention, we've talked about him before, 1886, making his debut, Icebox Chamberlain.
Very nice.
Let's see. Probably maybe best known for being the only player to give up 4 home runs to one batter in a single game. That happened in 1884. Also was the first known pitcher to throw with both arms in one game, left and right.
Oh, wow.
April 30th, 1892, against Cincinnati, he hit an inside-the-park grand slam in the 8th inning. So
nice.
That goes back to our inside-the-park home run streak we had. We were talking about that for a couple of shows. But he had, as a pitcher, an inside-the-park grand slam. Was the first ever pitcher to face 51 batters in a 9-inning contest. He faced 51 batters. I guess the bullpen, they all had the day off, or they were all hung over or something. But he finished his major league career with 264 complete games out of his 301 games started. The nickname Icebox might have been due to his ability to remain cool when pitching, but at least one story claimed that the nickname was due to his chronic laziness. Now, I literally just said he finished his career with 264 complete games. Does that sound like someone that's lazy?
To me, no. But, maybe it was a different work ethic back then.
Maybe. 1892, he once pitched in a game that was suspended due to sunlight. The game was scoreless, went into extra innings when the umpire decided the sun is too bright for the players to see the ball. And again, this was in 1892. The next year, the first dome was built. It was not. He played 34 seasons, including he played a couple of seasons with the Louisville Colonels with our guy Pete Browning.
Very nice.
Let's see. Also making his debut today in 1899, Highball Wilson.
Good old Highball.
Highball. He made that for the Cleveland Spiders, our favorite, in 1899. If you're going to debut for the Spiders, I say that's the year. Most memorable. He only pitched one game that season, but it wasn't good. He walked 5. I'm guessing he threw too many high balls. He's listed as 5'9", though, so it's not like a High Pockets Kelly situation where he got the nickname because he was tall or anything. He just probably walked a lot of guys. I don't know. We'll get to the bottom of it someday. Also making his debut today, 1904, one of our favorites, Gabby Street. It's been a while since we've mentioned a Gabby.
Yeah, Gabby was something.
He, of course, caught a baseball, dropped from the top of the Washington Monument. That's 550 feet. 555 feet, excuse me.
It's a very high pop-up. Yeah. Very high.
Very. He missed the first 12 attempts. I guess he's just lucky it didn't, hit him.
Drill him,
knock him on the noggin, yeah.
Right.
After playing, he managed quite a bit before going to the booth to work with a young Harry Carey. We've talked about that. He also gets Wax Pack's hero points for being a reference on the Simpsons Homer at the Bat episode. Mr. Burns wanted him behind the plate for the company softball team.
That's right.
We also mentioned before with Gabby Street, he bought Toni Stone her first pair of baseball spikes. Probably one of the best known debuts today, 1939, Hall of Famer Early Wynn. He went into the Hall of Fame, 1972. No way that we could possibly do Wynn justice here in this debut segment. Just so many superlatives. He won his first and only Cy Young Award in 1959 at the age of 39. That year, he had 22 wins, 179 strikeouts, a 3.16 ERA, and was the first major league pitcher to lead his league in strikeouts in consecutive years with different teams. He had led the league with Cleveland, and then the next year with Chicago. He won 300 exactly career games. The White Sox released him for some reason after his 299th career victory, which, by the way, was a complete game against the Senators. But they said, you're 42, you're too old. We don't want you for your 300th win, and thank you for that complete game shutout.
Yeah.
Teams offered Wynn one-game contracts looking to, hey, come win your 300th with us. But he wanted a season-long deal. Cleveland came through in 1963, put him in his starting rotation. July 13th, in his 4th start of the season, he became the 14th member of the 300 Wins Club, and then they released him. Didn't win another game. He once stated, quote, "I'd knock down my grandmother if she dug in on me," end quote. He threw batting practice after he retired, and he was knocking guys down on purpose in batting practice. He was a little ornery if you swung too hard on him.
Old habits die hard, Yeah, it's just the way it is.
So I mentioned it today is the anniversary of his debut in 1939. Also, the anniversary of his final game today in 1963. So sewed that up nicely. Also owned and operated the Early Wynn Steakhouse and bowling lanes in Venice, Florida in the 1960s.
Steakhouse and bowling lanes.
Yeah. So I guess while you're watching the other people bowl, you're working on a porterhouse.
Enjoying a porterhouse, yeah.
Maybe they didn't have automatic pin setters at that point. So you had guys actually putting the pins up, and so it took longer.
We'll have to ask the bowling podcast.
We will do that. We know somebody. Also, making his debut, 1941, today, Verne Stevens. Now, at Not Gaetti on Twitter, who I can very much assure you is, in fact, not Gary Gaetti, posted a very interesting name, that being Verne Stevens, that I had no knowledge of a week or so ago. He has this thing that he calls Not Enough People Talk About, where he then gives info about a player that normally doesn't get a lot of attention from baseball history for their career. Now, I will say 9 times out of 10, we've done an entire podcast on these people that he doesn't think people talk about enough. But still, a lot of really good info on Verne Stevens, one of which is this fact. Just 4 players account for all of the top 10 on the list of highest single season RBI totals as a shortstop. So in the top 10 of RBI single season highs for a shortstop, there are only 4 players. That is Miguel Tejada, Ernie Banks, Alex Rodriguez, and Verne Stevens.
Wow, you don't hear about Verne very much.
You really don't. And, looking at this, he had several seasons in his career, 15-year career, where he had more than 100 RBI. 3 times he led the league in RBI. He also led the league in home runs 1 year. And most of this is while he was playing for the St. Louis Browns. Ended up with a 286 career batting average, 355 career on base, 247 career home runs, 1,174 RBI, 25 stolen bases, 22 caught stealing. So not a whole lot of speed. Also led the league in double plays grounded into a couple of times. But overall, a career WAR of 46.2.
Solid.
Which is, that's pretty solid. He is up there. His similarity scores on Baseball Reference are with Tony Lazzari, Brett Boone, Chase Utley, Joe Gordon, Joe Torre. We got some Hall of Famers there. That's a name I knew nothing about, and he had some pretty good years. Also making his debut, 1976, Dale Murphy. Catcher Dale Murphy, right? He came up as a catcher, which...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those first 2 seasons, that was the only position he played. But Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. I think we've talked about this before. Just some numbers here. 1 back-to-back MVPs in 1982 and 83 with Atlanta. Only other consecutive MVP award winners before Murphy was Jimmy Fox, Hal Newhouser, Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, Ernie Banks, Roger Maris, Joe Morgan, and Mike Schmidt. Won 4 consecutive Silver Slugger Awards, the first National League outfielder to win 4 straight, breaking the record of 2 in a row, originally set by Andre Dawson. He won 5 consecutive Gold Gloves, played in 740 consecutive games. So he was a workhorse. Dale Murphy was the guy Steve Garvey pretended to be. Like, he was as nice off the field as he pretended to be. And if his numbers aren't enough to get him to Hall of Fame, how about this? Before a home game against San Francisco in 1983, Murphy visited the stands where Elizabeth Smith, she was a 6-year-old girl who had lost both hands and a leg when she'd stepped on a live power line. And Murphy gave her cap and a T-shirt and was being a good guy. And her nurse, channeling an episode of Seinfeld long before it happened, asked if he could hit a home run for Elizabeth. So Murph said, quote, "I didn't know what to say, so I just sort of mumbled, okay." And ended up hitting 2 home runs that day and drove in all of the runs for the Braves in a 3-2 win. If you ever meet a major league player before a game, don't ask them to hit a home run.
Don't tell them either. Yeah. Don't just demand it.
Yeah.
But not even asking. It's home runs, to quote Keith Hernandez, it's hard to hit home runs.
I think Ty Cobb would differ.
That's true. Ty could do it whenever he felt like it, apparently.
Also, let's see here. 1995, Billy Wagner made his debut. That's Hall of Famer Billy Wagner now.
Yeah.
We mentioned last week, Billy Wagner has a son in the big leagues, Will Wagner, for the Blue Jays. His father has got a great nickname, Hot Rod.
Nice.
Yeah. At 7 years old, Wagner's right arm was broken while playing football. Shortly after that healed and the cast was removed, he broke that arm again. During this time, Wagner, who was, as you can guess, since his right arm keeps getting broken, was a natural right-hander, began throwing a baseball left-handed. During his career, he was named the DHL Delivery Man of the Month once. So I posed this question to you yesterday, Mark. I said, we've got the Rolaids fireman with the DHL Delivery Man of the Month. What company should be sponsoring relievers now? What company can give out an award now?
Well, my first instinct was Pepto-Bismol, coats, soothes, relieves, But I think my better choice was Depends Undergarments, because you can relieve yourself without worrying about the runs. See? Sorry, that was terrible.
Okay. Well, it works. One of my thoughts was J.G. Wentworth, because if you have a cash settlement, but you need cash now, you need to get out of that settlement, just like a reliever needs to get out of a jam, right?
Okay.
You have an annuity, but you need cash now, get out of that annuity. Get out of that bases loaded jam with the tying run and scoring position. Long-term payments, but you need cash now, Mariano Rivera is your guy. And, everybody already knows the phone number. We're not gonna sing it here, but
no, they haven't paid us.
I've got one that I know is the winner, though. Do you have any more?
Okay. No, those are the only two I could come up with.
All right. Now, I'll say it again. We come up with a lot of ideas on this podcast. I mean, a lot of ideas, but not, every one of them are great ideas. But I think this one is good. And I've already filed for copyright on this one. Fireball Whiskey. The Fireball Whiskey Fireballer of the Year.
Nice.
I think this was a good idea, and if they want to send me whiskey for it too, I'm all for it. We are a whiskey podcast.
Yeah, who doesn't like Fireball?
I know, right? I guess they've got a new one coming out, like some kind of apple Fireball for the holidays or something. And we think it would be more pumpkin spice-esque, but no, I'm glad they're going another way. But I've got one more thing for the 13th of September. It's not a debut, but I wanted to talk about this that happened in baseball history today. So last week we brought up Ty Cobb. We just did like 3 seconds ago as well. And the whole home runs are lame story, right? Well, yes. That being said, today in 1909, Ty Cobb clinches the American League home run title with his 9th home run of the season. It was an inside the park home run against the Browns. And in fact, all 9 of his home runs that he hit to lead the league that season were inside the parkers, including he had 2 in one game on July 15th. He is the only player in this century, well, I guess in the last 2 centuries, to lead the league in home runs without hitting one out of the park.
That's amazing.
So I wonder what his feelings are on that. He doesn't like home runs, but he leads the league with all these inside the park jobs. I'm guessing he's okay with those.
Yeah, because his whole point about home runs was that it doesn't really take any talent or any sort of strategy, to hit a home run out of the park. But inside the park, that takes work.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting in play and then you're just booking it. And who knows if there was even an outfield wall in some of these parks that he played in. I'm telling you, the Fireballer of the Year is a legit idea.
Absolutely. A little upset that I didn't come up with it instead of Depends Undergarments.
Well, I think about whiskey like you think about being able to relieve yourself without getting products. Up. All right, Mark, we've gone a little bit long here because there were so many debuts today. What we're going to do is the weather is looking rather threatening today, so we're going to play a shortened game of Wax Packs Heroes. Instead of the first to 5, we're going to do the first to 3. So we're going to play 6 innings and then get out of here. So this is what we're going to do. Well, first of all, we've got a theme. We got to play it because otherwise we're losing money. So it's time for Wax Packs Heroes.
Wax Pack Heroes. All stars in his eyes. Wax Pack Hero. Gonna pull a Wax Pack Hero. All stars in his eyes. On the podcast tonight.
All right, looking at the scoreboard, it is 8-6. I am the 8. Mark, you are the 6. We are playing the first to 20, so we've got a ways to go, and I am the defending champ. I just want to put that out there. If you're a first-time listener here or have forgotten the rules of how we play Wax Packs Heroes, what we're going to do is both Mark and I are going to take a random card, and we're going to go head-to-head, card-to-card in like the old card game of war. But we are going to use baseball reference war of the player on the card. Whoever has the highest war of the year of the card will win that round. Now, there are a couple of things that can add or subtract to that number, though. Anything that we can consider 80s baseball aesthetics. That means sunglasses, big science teacher glasses, good mustaches, eye black, anything on the face, real stirrups where we can see sanitary socks. Any of those kind of things will get you an extra 1/10 of a point. If it's a really good mustache, we'll give you 2/10 of a point. If the player is wearing something like 2-in-1 stirrups, things that we don't like, that is a minus 1/10 of a point. If the player won any awards like Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP, was an All-Star, or won a Gold Glove, that the year of the card, that is extra 1/2 a point. If there's a Hall of Famer on the card, whether they're the focus or not, that's a whole extra point. If Ricky Henderson shows up at any point, does not matter who plays it, I win the round. But if Nolan Ryan shows up, though, Mark wins the round as well. Pop culture references, any that we can easily find, you get a 1/2 a point for that, unless they appeared on Seinfeld, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or The Simpsons. That is a whole extra point. And if they were suspended during their career or appeared in the Mitchell Report, that is a 1/2 a point. All right, Mark, we've got some cards sent in from a listener. I'm not sure how I pronounce his last name. His first name is Tim. Last name is Johnston, I think is how you pronounce it. I think. Johnston. Okay.
Yes. Tim Johnston.
Tim Johnston. That
it's
sounds
weird because I have a brother named Tim Johnston. Oh, wait. That's who it is.
Well, he was nice enough to, I don't know if he mailed or handed them to you, but he's given us some 1990 tops that we are going to use here for this here Wax Packs Heroes. As I mentioned, we're going to do a little rain-shortened game here because we ran a little long in the main segment. We're going to go first 1 to 3. Let's see. You have got a couple of stacks in both hands, one for you, one for me. Yes. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to choose the cards in the left hand.
All right.
And you can choose if you want me to go first or if you want to go first.
I think you should go first.
All right. So,
so these are 90s.
Okay.
Okay. And your first card, Phillies left-hander, Terry Mulholland, the man impossible to steal off of.
Let's see. Terry Mulholland, overall 20 years in baseball. Most of it was with the Phillies, his longest stint, 6 years there. Every other team, just about, except for, I don't see Oakland on here, but every other team almost, he played over those 20 years. If we are looking specifically at 1990, he went with the Phillies this year, went 9-10 with a 3.34 ERA, 180 innings pitched, 172 hits, 75 strikeouts, a 1.14 ERA plus. And that is good for a WAR of 1.8. Now, he always had a beard. Did he have a beard at this point?
He did not. He's very clean shaven here.
How dare him? Is there anything else on that card that's going to help me out?
Can't tell in this. No, yeah, you can tell. The stirrups are real.
Yeah, there you go, Terry.
He's got the cleats where you folded the top part over.
The tongue, yes.
Yes, he's got those.
I'm not going to take it, but I think that should be an 80s baseball aesthetic because they don't exist anymore.
Right.
And I wear spikes. I wear metal spikes when I play, and I cut a shoelace the other day because of, I tripped over my own foot. But regardless, I cut the shoelace with my spike, which if I had the tongue over the it wouldn't have happened. Why did we go away from that? I
still have a couple pairs of those.
Yeah. All right, so I'm at 1.9. Let's see, is there any kind of pop culture reference here? He looks like a hippie right now. He has got some long gray hair going on this updated shot. Whoa, I like this. Lists baseball card collecting as one of his hobbies.
Oh, nice.
Is well known for having one of the nastiest pickoff moves in the game.
Best I've ever seen.
Yeah. Also, he was the one... He's the one you see the highlight of most of the time. He was fielding his position in 86, and Keith Hernandez hit a ground ball back to him, and he grabbed it with his glove, but it got stuck in the webbing of his glove, and so he just tossed his whole glove over to Bob Brenly at first to retire Hernandez. All right, so I got a 1.9. Who you got?
All right, in the battle of the lefty starters, Blue Jays left-hander Jimmy Key.
All right.
Another solid pitcher.
Yeah, we've had Jimmy recently in another pack. I think, yeah, he's always good. 15 years in the big leagues, 9 with Toronto, 4 with the Yankees, 2 with Baltimore. 1990 with the Blue Jays, he went 13-7 with a 4.25 ERA. 154 innings pitched, 169 hits given up, 88 strikeouts for a 97 ERA plus, and that is a WAR of 1.5. Anything on that card going to help you out?
No, absolutely nothing.
All right, well, that's good news for me because I've got a 1.9.
Yeah. Mulholland had a better year than Key.
Let's see. I mean, did Jimmy Key have that big off-the-field Hollywood presence? I don't think so.
I don't believe so. But he is an amateur golfer and is a prominent member of the Palm Beach Gardens golfing community.
Go.
So I think that's worth at least 4 points.
4 points? Not even 4/10 of a point. You would just want four whole points.
Well, I thought if you were a member of the Palm Beach Gardens golfing community, that's not one of the rules. Okay.
No, I'm going to take the win. I'm going to take the win on that one. And remember, this is a rain-shortened game, so we're playing best of 3, and right now I am up 1-0.
All right, you ready for your second pitcher?
Yep.
This time's a righty for the Cleveland baseball team, Rich Yett.
Rich Yett. I remember Yett.
Y-E-T-T.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, Rich Yett. There's somebody I have not thought of since I last had a Rich Yett baseball card in my hand in the 80s.
Same here.
Let's see. 6 years in the big leagues, 4 with Cleveland, 2 with Minnesota. In 1990, it was his final year in the big leagues at age 27. He appeared in 4 games for the Twins, 2.08 ERA, 4 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 strikeouts, a 2.17 ERA plus. But that is a WAR of 0.0. Now, he did usually have a mustache. Anything going on there?
Yeah, he always had a mustache except in this card.
Oh, you son of a gun. Well, that's not
no mustache, cool. And you can't see stirrups.
Rich Yett was a player to be named later that was part of a deal between Minnesota and Cleveland, where Minnesota sent Jay Bell and some other guys to Cleveland for Burt B. Home Blyleven.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He does not have a lot going on here on the Wikipedia page. So I have scored a big 0. So I'm hoping you come up with somebody that's got a negative WAR.
Well, I'm not sure on this guy. A right-handed pitcher from the Cardinals, from the old-timey comedy team, John Costello.
I remember Rich Yett. I do not. Well, looking at some of these John Costello cards, I remember the baseball cards, but I do not remember him per se. Let's see. 4 years in the big leagues, 3 with the Cardinals, and then split time between the Padres and the Expos. In 1990, he's one of those years where he split time between St. Louis and Montreal. Overall, no record. 8 games, 5.91 ERA, 10 innings pitched, 12 hits, 2 strikeouts for a 68 ERA plus. And, oh my goodness. Okay. Whew. Minus 0.3. He had a positive 0.3 the year before, but splitting time between those two teams, he had a minus 0.3. Anything on that card going to get you out of this hole?
Absolutely nothing.
No. He was at one point traded straight up for Rex Hudler. There is nothing going on here. We've got no pop culture references, but what we do have is a 2-0 lead for me. I'm 1 away from sewing this up early.
Yeah, it's a struggle. We've got to put our heads down and just go at it here and try and come out with something. I like my odds, though, based on your player.
All right.
Or should I say your manager? Cardinals manager Whitey Herzog.
The White Rat. Yeah. I will laugh if you pull a manager card as well. Hall of Famer Whitey Herzog. Don't forget, 2010 he went in the Veterans Committee. He played for 8 years just kind of an average player, but of course he was manager, World Series manager, 1982 World Series champs with the Cardinals and Keith Hernandez. Hey, I thought we figured out why he was named the White Rat at one point, but I don't remember.
Well, because his real name is difficult.
Doral Norman Elvert Herzog.
Doral Norman Elvert.
That's a mouthful there.
And as a child, or as a kid, when he was working, Doug Graves. So, that's fun.
Yeah. I was hoping for some pop culture stuff, but no, nothing. That'd be the only way. So I have a 0 here.
You don't get the Hall of Fame point?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take that.
Just being honest, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got a 1, so I've got a shot. Who's your guy?
Phillies outfielder, first baseman, Von Hayes.
Oh, 5 for 1. Whitey Herzog never did a Miller Lite commercial with Bob Uecker or anything, did he? That seems like something that he would have done.
I don't think so.
Let me do a quick search there. Because that really seems like, is it Miller Lite?
Yeah, Miller Lite tastes great, less filling.
Oh, here we go. Miller Lite ad with Whitey Herzog and Dick Williams. 1980. Should we listen to it?
Sure.
In our job, we use signs all the time. This means bunt. Well, that's good, Dick, but this means steal. Not bad, Whitey, but this means give us a light beer from Miller. Well, light has a third less calories than a regular beer, and it's less filling. Whitey, this means light tastes great. Hey, partner, you can say that again. I think I will.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
All right, so I'm at 1.5.
For a manager card, dude.
For a manager card is right. Let's see. Let me get up on. I remember I used to think Von Hayes. I thought that was his last name, like Von Trapp or something. I thought that was just his last name. And
Von Purple Hayes.
Von Purple Hayes, yeah. And 5 for 1, of course, the trade. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
He's from the Bay Area here. Well, not really the Bay Area. Bay Area adjacent, Stockton, California. Overall, 12 years in the big leagues. Philly for 9, Cleveland for 2, California for 1. 1990 in Philadelphia, 129 games, hit 261, 375 slugging, 17 home runs, 73 RBI, 118 OPS plus, and that is good for a WAR of 3.1. So I think even though I got good points for a manager card, it's not gonna come out my way. Of course, the 5 for 1 trade, Cleveland and Philadelphia. He was traded for Julio Franco, Manny Trio, George Vukovic, Jerry Willard, and of course the incomparable Jay Baller.
Vaughn, not talked about as often as he should be. He was a solid baseball player.
Well, he was a solid baseball player, but when your nickname's 5 for 1 and you get traded for 5 players, you're expected to be an exceptional.
Depends on what the 5 players are, and the ones you mentioned, not bad.
Yeah,
especially Jay Baller.
And nobody takes a baseball card picture with that much lettuce coming out of the top of their shirt like Jay Baller does.
That's right.
Yeah, again, when you're nicknamed 5 for 1, I mean, you're expected to do a little bit more than what he did, which I think is beyond expectations. So, yeah, tough there for Vaughn. But there you can get a point there. You're on the board. It's 2-1.
All right, here's your next card. I think I got another shot at this.
Yeah.
Mariners #1 draft pick, Roger Salkeld.
Roger Salk, what?
Salkeld. Salkeld.
Well, like many Mariners first round draft picks. Let's see. Well, he eventually made it to the big leagues, but not until 1993. Overall, 3 years in the big leagues, 2 with Seattle, 1 with Cincinnati. Overall, 10-10 mark with a ERA of 5.61, 189 innings pitched, 141 strikeouts, 203 hits, a 79 ERA plus, and a career WAR of 0.6 for the 3rd overall draft pick in 1989. Anything on the card going to help me out?
He's got real stirrups, my friend.
Oh, well, that's good. That's a 1/10 of a point. But
he's too young to have a mustache, I think.
Well, it's better than a 0.
This is interesting. Roger enjoyed the distinction of never allowing a triple or a home run his entire high school career.
Wow. I mean, I got to assume that that's kind of common for these guys that are first-round draft picks that just dominate in high school.
Yeah, he had 1 no-hitter and 7 one-hitters.
Jeez, where did he go to? Oh, he went to, I think it's Central Southern California, it looks like. Yeah, he's from Burbank, so he's down from Southern California. So there's some good competition there. But, all right, so I got a 0.1. It's better than a 0. Who am I going up against?
A guy we used to lovingly call Pretty Boy, Mr. Ron Darling.
Why did we call him Pretty Boy?
Because he was a part-time model.
Oh, see, I think of Pretty Boy. I think of Nice Game, Pretty Boy. I think of Keith Hernandez. But, yes. I mean, they're still work buddies.
True.
Ron Darling in the booth with Keith and Gary. And I go back and forth. You know, I love Keith Hernandez. And I'm like, I like when he's there for sure. But then there are a couple of games when only Ron is there. And Ron is so much more cerebral. And they are by far the best booth in baseball. I mean, absolutely by far the best. Ron Darling, of course, gets that cerebralness, I guess, from going to Yale University.
Yes.
A first-round draft pick, 9th overall by the Rangers in 1981. Overall, 13 years in the big leagues, of course, won a World Series in 1986 with the Mets, where he spent 9 years, 5 years with the good guys in the green and gold, and 1 year in Montreal.
Okay.
In 1990, with the Mets, he went 7-9 with a 4.0 ERA, 126 innings pitched, 135 hits, 99 strikeouts, a 84 ERA plus, and that is good for a WAR of -0.5.
No. Wow.
So you've got some work to do here. Anything on that card? Did you get some real stirrups?
You can't tell. They cut his feet off.
Oh, that's good for them. Let's see here. Pop culture wise, what are we going to get here?
Yeah.
Well, we've got quite a bit.
He married a model, Antoinette O'Reilly. And they appeared together on numerous magazines.
All right. Well, he was a cover for GQ in 1986. Got that. He filmed a special introduction for the opening of Saturday Night Live. He appeared in an episode of Sesame Street in which he taught Telly Monster about baseball statistics. He was on the cover of RBI Baseball 95. Who is putting Ron Darling on the cover of a baseball video game? That's a choice right there.
That's interesting.
Had small roles in the film Shallow Hal and The Day After Tomorrow, and played himself in Mr. 3000.
Nice pop culture points.
Now, yeah, I mean, he gets generally though, we give a half a point, right? Not for each one, but if you get some, unless you're in Seinfeld, Sabrina, or The Simpsons, which you get a full point for each. So you're going to get a half a point here. So that'll put you to 0, which is less than my 0.1.
Now, who'd have thought Roger Salkeld was going to be Ron Darling, huh?
Well, I don't know, but I'll take it. That's a win for me, and that puts me at 3 and moves me up the victory board to 9 wins.
Oh man, I really thought I had a shot there.
I'll take that. Yes.
The last 2 cards, I think you would have got me.
Well, we'll save those. We'll save those for another show. But good for you. Good for you. I forget his name already. Roy Salkeld.
Roger Salkeld.
All right. Well, that'll do it.
Winner.
That'll do it for Wax Packs Heroes. Thanks again to Tim Johnston. Sorry about your family, but thank you for the cards. Well, sorry about your brother. I'll just say that. But thank you for the cards. If you want to send us some curated packs, or if you want to get a hold of us, easy to do. Just any search engine you want. Just look up Two Strike Noise or any of the socials. We're at Two Strike Noise. That is at TWO Strike Noise. And Mark also has an email address that all of our snail mail gets forwarded to.
Yes, you can write to us at Two Strike Noise. Spell it out. TWO Strike Noise at gmail.com.
There you go. Mark actually will take those emails and he'll type them out, or sometimes he'll just write them out by hand and then put them in the actual mailbox to himself.
Yeah. That's right. It makes me feel like I'm getting fan mail.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll do it again. See you again next week, or let me just say next episode. I don't want to put the pressure on me, but we'll see you on the next episode of Two Strike Noise.
Thank you. God bless you. Have a great day.